Oh, hey, how you doing? Yeah, I might be doing my best songs of 2020, 50 to be exact, but I don't know, something feels off, something feels like it's missing. I can't quite put my finger on it. That'll do it. Much better. But before we get into the list proper, here are 15 honourable mentions.
Stay on my mind, feel my breathe. I'm a fantasy.
Pasando el tiempo y aquí diciendo que
For all of my pretty and all of my ugly too. I love to see me from your point of view.
He said, don't you do that, son. You'll only make it worse.
Does your father know that he fucked up his head? Of his lost his sleep, a fucking instrument.
it's Bugs Nights. It's Bugs Nights.
When I was just a baby. When I was just a train.
White man trying to take my shit. White man trying to take my shit. Man, don't try to take my shit. Take my shirt off and now the whole stop breathe. Take my shirt off and now the whole stop breathe.
I wasn't in the mood for love. Be quite funny.
This year's list has easily been the most highly contested and difficult Song of the Year list I've ever had to make, so don't take the honourable mention status as these songs being just not as good or that they didn't make my year significantly better, because that couldn't be further from the truth. But with that out of the way, hello and welcome, I'm Liam the Music Reviewer, and it's time to count down the top 50 songs of 2020. The best kind of unsettling music is definitely the kind that is creepy with or without context. This song echoes, even if you have no idea about the background of this song, you can't help but feel like you're uncovering a recording that you've got no business listening to, and when you finally know a bit more of the context, that ominous feeling of being where you shouldn't just gets a lot stronger. Despite the lyrics mainly being made up of an Alexa-esque delivery of "Would you rather be lonely?" It's really easy to buy into Jessie Landa's indie-tronica sentiments of longing and romance, and during a year where it was very easy to feel distant from those who you would much rather hold close to you but couldn't because of physical limitations, I think there's some greater meaning to this song that bumps it up a level. It feels criminal trying to describe Ichiko Ilba's work with words when no sentence or paragraph could ever encapsulate the ethereal nature of her work. Porcelain only goes to make that challenge all the more difficult, but what a compliment that is. There's that age-old idiom of going out with a bang, but with Yusuke's Witness, I think we should change that to going out with the most splendid strings that I've ever heard in my life. Might not have the same kind of ring to it, might not catch on, but it's no less true. What a closer this is. While I think it's horrible that Radiohead heard this song and used their time machine to go back to 2004 to steal this track's name, the sheer drive of Gloaming is enough for me to forget about that for a bit. 3 minutes and 25 seconds to be exact. So I heard this used in a car advert and I loved it. Crunchy, harsh and bouncy. I don't even know how to drive and I was in the palm of this ad's hand solely because of how engaging Planets Mad is. On an unrelated note, would anyone like to buy 20 Vauxhall Corsas off me? Any doubts that Deftones had lost their magic 2 decades into their career haven't been so much laid to rest, rather totally obliterated by Ohms and more specifically Radiant City. And no, I'm not gonna shut up about that riff. It's one of the dirtiest things in existence other than your dad. I was fairly let down by the new Everything record, and while their past work played some factor into my expectations, it was with Birdsong that my hype for this new album reached its fixating heights. Even if we didn't get it with Reanimator, the thought of a full-length release that is just jam-packed with shimmering, ambitious cuts like In Birdsong is enough to have me quaking, just like your dad. 2020's wave of retro, pastiche and disco has bordered on tiresome, but there's no denying that it had its moments, with Don't Start Now debatably being the peak of it all. If it was possible for me to surgically remove the bass line from this song and inject it right into my bloodstream, I reckon I'd live forever.
So what you're saying is, I'm indestructible.
Oh, no. In fact, even a slight breeze could...
Indestructible.
I don't think I'll ever grow tired of Perfume Genius, least of all when it comes to a cut like On the Floor, which really sells me on a type of infatuation that you're addicted to but are trying to fight off. The little flares, including those closing strings, help to avoid any pitfalls of shallowness, whether this is a dreamlike situation or a nightmarish one for some people. I'm more than buying into this. I'd really love Dedicated, Carly Rae Jepsen's 2019 record, so when news of there being a B-side companion I was excited but obviously anxious as to whether or not it would just be scraps packaged together. Genius move to have such a goosebump inducing dancey song like This Love Isn't Crazy as your opener in order to eradicate those very doubts. Scuzzy and nocturnal, I can't think of a song that better encapsulates the feeling of drunkenly stumbling home after a night out, and I do kind of regret not putting the bit where Archie goes, "Got a puppy," is one of the best wee music moments of 2020.
Nights turn into days, I turn to grey, keep turning over.
If you told me last year that Haim were going to put out their best album in 2020, then I'd have believed you. Had you told me that the peak of that album would be an indie-tronica / future garage song revolving around isolation and depression, then I'd have laughed you out of my igloo. Oh, by the way, this imaginary conversation takes place in Club Penguin, I forgot to mention that. I won't lie, Jamie XX could have come back from his 5-year solo silence with some in-colour scraps and I wouldn't have turned my nose up at it, but the fact I Don't Know is one of his most ambitious songs to date and has me totally entranced for its 5-minute runtime makes his return all the sweeter.
I think I've seen this film before, and I didn't like the ending.
You don't need me to get into how much of a curveball year this has been for Taylor Swift musically, but I can't say I was expecting a Bon Iver collab to reach the great heights of her best material like State of Grace. It's a match made in heaven, even if the situation this song explores is less than idyllic.
Rain on me.
I had a lot of fun making my best hits of the 2000s and 2010s videos, and was going to keep the ball rolling by doing a best hits of 2020 video, but it seemed kinda counterproductive seeing as this very video exists and would give away the winner, or at least the best hit actually released this year. And of course, Rain On Me is that song, and it genuinely pains me that we've been unable to like properly enjoy it, what with clubs and parties and gigs being all but extinct this year. The French house and dance pop embellishments really do help this song to become one of the best that Lady Gaga has ever put out, at the very least the best song she's put out in over a decade, and it's just another gem in Ariana Grande's pop crown.
But I feel like burning down my life again. I watch the fire spread over my skin.
The emo genre has hurt me a lot over the years, more to do with stuff out with the music itself, but it has consistently been churning out great stuff, and 2020 may just be the best year for it since the mid-2010s. Spanish love songs definitely deserve a bit of credit for that good reputation, and the eponymous closer should show you just why that is the case. Those final few seconds never fail to give me chills. Hey, I did say it'd been a great year for emo music, and if any band were the face of this wave in 2020, it would have to be newcomers Dogleg. Melee was just front to back energetic bangers, and the band made sure to put their best foot forward when opening with Kawasaki Backflip. If you hear this track and you don't wish to be in a big sweaty pile bouncing off of people while it plays, then I think you're a bit of a dweeb.
Do what you like with me, honey, 'cause I can turn you down.
When an artist tries to replicate or at least channel the sound of another artist, it can sometimes feel like they're wearing hand-me-down clothes that don't quite fit right, but we've been pretty fortunate that we've had not one but two great Prince tribute songs that would really make the man proud. There's of course Janelle Monáe with Make Me Feel, and then there's Come and Have a Go with this song right here, I'm a sucker for that whip effect. It is just very nice.
You take yourself seriously, stop. Listen to your heart.
There's something so poetic and comedic about Blade's vocals being the main blockade for me enjoying his music prior to 2020, and this very song, where said vocals are front and centre of the whole show, being the turning point for me enjoying his music. A hypnotic, spacey wee tune that whenever I get around to it when I'm listening to Triple Free, I can't help but lip it, I really can't. If you want the most defining lyric of 2020, then iPhone has your back. If you want the best lyric of the year that pays homage to 90s noughties tech, then iPhone has your back. If you want a raspy, rambunctious party anthem to soundtrack your shower rave, then iPhone has your back. If you're going to get people to listen to your 3-hour-long album, then you really do need to give them a reason to stick around for that journey. Case in point, Next to Me. This is a song that whenever it pops up, it's a 7-minute long song, I can't help but sway side to side for the entire runtime. It is just, gets things kicked off really well for an album that you may see me talk about in the next video, that's all I'll say. I don't think I've ever found myself praising One Trick Point Never's music for vocals, but stranger things have happened in 2020, and here we have I Don't Love Me Anymore. Of course, the distorted, punky, jaded production is absolutely stellar as well, but the reverberated, envious delivery on display helps make it a pretty satisfying package.
My boy's got his own ringtone. It's the only one I know, it's the only one I know. My boy's got his own ringtone. It's the only one I know, it's the only one I know.
It should come as no surprise that this track became my most played 2020 song given the roster, but what was a shock for me was just how well everyone bounces off each other. Charlie's Party Girl aura, KKB's chipper demeanour but with a sinister underbelly to it all, and then there's Rico Nasty with a rough but charming verse. Just the stars aligned with this song right here, and with the 100 gecs production underneath it all, it is just Oh, it feels like it was specifically tailored for me and only me. So I did big up Dua Lipa earlier on this video, but come on, you know when I was talking about what disco music should sound like in 2020 and what was the peak of it, it couldn't be anyone else but Jessie Ware, something that I think caught some people off guard, including yours truly. I wasn't really familiar with her prior to this track, but with her pitch perfect delivery and an arrangement that feels as rich and textured as a tapestry, not to mention just how groovy it is, Jessie Ware will be a name and act I'll have no trouble remembering going forward. If there was a song this year that I found myself humming more than is probably healthy, then it would have to be this bop right here. Not only is it ridiculous in how infectiously catchy it all is, but having that Django Pop production in tandem with a song that focuses so much about this person with a cynical perspective, it is just genius. Genius is the only word that comes to mind to describe how great this song is.
Evil is a relay sport when the one who's learned turns to pass the torch. Evil is a relay sport when the one who's learned turns to pass the torch.
There are so many uneasy moments on Fiona Apple's much adored comeback 2020 release, but when it comes to Relay, it all lies in the production, that constantly winding pack of strings just threatening to give way at any second. It's like watching a balloon just fill up in like 3 times speed and just knowing at any moment it's gonna pop. When taken into consideration with Fiona's musings about evil being a relay sport and how some can pass on the very abusive experience, yeah, I still find myself coming back to uneasy as the best descriptor.
Oh, baby, where are you now when I need you most? I'd give it all just to hold you close.
The Weeknd isn't a stranger to showing his sensitive side, but it's hard to recall a time where he's managed to do so with such spectacle like this little future garage banger. It might not bang as hard as last year's Blinding Lights or Heartless, but it's no less dazzling. Shout out to that kick drum, by the way. I'd buy you a drink if it weren't for the whole being an inanimate object thing.
I thank a God I've never met, never loved, never wanted.
I did talk about this song in my last video where I was praising the really soothing humming, but let's not get it twisted. The real star of the show here is Laura Marling and her lyrical prowess. The fact she can write a song about her child in such a life-affirming, beautiful way that I was genuinely shocked when I found out that said child is actually imaginary is testament to her skill.
Just a little bit, on me, on my, I don't wanna hear, only one, on me, on my.
I really couldn't be happier that 2020 was the year that Rina Sawayama really did blow up in popularity, and the fact that it was a song like XS that led to this success, I couldn't be happier. This is just the perfect song to really launch her into the stratosphere. A track that's equally a noughties throwback in its nu metal like guitars and pop star style, and an anti-consumerism anthem. It's basically the musical embodiment of that meme where Britney Spears is standing in front of the communist flag.
I can't see it, baby. Guess I fucking love it, but I don't need to.
Miss Anthropocene might not have been the home run many, including myself, were hoping for after the marvel that was Art Angels, but it wasn't a complete misfire as shown by Delete Forever. It's just one of those great tracks where the stars align and every component just works perfectly with one another. The wonderful We Folk outro is definitely a favourite of mine. Regardless of everything that's gone down with Grimes, I do not struggle to call her one of the most interesting individuals in music right now, especially when it comes to her breaking down her creative process and how she goes about making music. If time allowed it, I would watch nothing but her genius breakdowns of her songs. They are just so interesting, and it's great that a song like Delete Forever shows that the intrigue doesn't lie just in the analysis of it.
I'm just trying to remember. Just trying to remember. It's October and I'm tired.
the centrepiece of Open Mike Eagle's agonising, confessional, and quite often hilarious album Anime, Trauma and Divorce, Everything Ends Last Year, would have been a really heartbreaking song in a conventional year, but as we know by now, 2020 has been the furthest thing from conventional or normal. How unlucky we all felt, everything disintegrating in our hands, feeling like the world was having fun at our expense. Having Mike go into detail with a sparse instrumental as his only company really helped to rub salt in the wound.
And I take off driving past places been tainted, I put on a good show for you.
I've gone on and on and on about how beautiful the opening to this song is, and this video isn't any different. It is absolutely stunning, and if you were able to distill it into a vitamin, I would take it every day. It would be the thing that would just get my day kicked off perfectly. Fire is obviously so much more than its opening moments, and I doubt it will ever cease to impress me how Katie Crutchfield explores finding self-worth and not relying on finding it with others with such wonderful imagery. My favourite tracks from the Beths always tend to be ones with like a melancholic Malcolm streak running through their power pop hairdos, and Out of Sight joins Not Running in the category of songs that just go to show that if you haven't listened to this New Zealand act yet, then you are missing out big time. Will I ever shut up about that impressive bridge that sprinkles a smidge of guitars before the shaker lid falls off and submerges the song with it? Or that key change where the backing vocals emerge, as do my tears? Well, seeing as I'm bringing it up now, of course not, you silly Billy.
Sometimes I just wanna say, hey, go away, go away, yeah.
2020 was a big year for mental health in the same way that 2017 was a big year for the city of Charlottesville, so thank God Jeff Rosenstock gave us The Beauty of Breathing, a song all about mental health that ridicules those who are eager to put plasters on problems in need of far greater help, and just how messy depression can really be. The kind of song that I've always needed, and the kind of song that I'm so happy to finally have in my life.
I really know it's inside of me, and it was never enough. There's not a right or wrong side of me, now I want it all us.
If there's one song from 2020 that I've come back to time and time again, whether to amp me up or let me wallow in despair, then it would have to be Prozac. A bassy, emo pop hip hop song that revolves around knowing your self-worth despite what people who have wronged you or have done you dirty might suggest. It might seem on the surface that this could be just very shallow and basic, but the execution is just immaculate. Depending on your preferences, this could be a little bit too much for your palate. I don't mean that in a very like snooty way, I just mean that if you're not a fan of something like Little Peep or Brockhampton, then yeah, it might be a bit much, but if you are a fan of either of those acts, then you are silly for not jamming this already.
I say you lost your goddamn minds if y'all possess one to begin with.
Just got done walking in the snow. Goddamn that motherfucker cold. Just got done walking in the snow. Goddamn that motherfucker cold.
The latest entry in the RTJ series was praised for just how timely it was, but if one song was to be described as such, it would have to be this one. How Killer Mike's verse, written in November 2019, held more relevance and power several months later is both impressive in its quality as well as heartbreaking in its accuracy. LP also has a great performance. Those bars about cages might actually be my favourite bit of the entire song, and Gangsta Boo's contribution just helps this song to come together in a really impressive way.
You see, I see the light at the tunnel, just little blurry, but I'm saying I
When we evaluate ourselves in order to figure out what works well and what we need to change, it's easy to start to lose sight and almost tune out in a way, which is a sentiment Backwash absolutely nailed with Spells. It's clear she's aware of the scenario from the production alone with that hypnotic chanting that would be enough to lure you into a trance, but it's Backwash is rapping and these feelings of anguish and hopelessness that really do sell it. Despite it only being 2 minutes long and her verse probably taking up half of that runtime, it wouldn't be a challenge to make a list of the 10 best lyrics on Spells, though if I were to choose one just for the sake of time, then it would have to be I Think I'm Soulless in My Solace. That's one that just pops up in my head at any random moment. A big chunk of my 2020 revolved around reminiscing, whether it was consuming childhood media or like new versions of it, like the latest Animal Crossing entry. It was a huge crutch for me, and this Gorillaz track right here definitely fell into that latter category. A hypnagogic dreamy affair. This should pretty much be the blueprint for all Gorillaz collaborations when it comes to guests, as it's got the sense and synergy that hasn't been seen since the Plastic Beach days. It also helps that Damon Albarn is sounding pretty bloody wonderful too. Give me whatever the hell they're injecting 2D with on the cover, please.
I drank from the deepest pond when the ocean did me wrong. I'm left with what I've known all around.
When it came to the very lowest points of 2020, I was just hoping and praying for some new Touche Amore material, and it only makes sense given how cathartic their 2016 album Stage 4 was, which, if you remember, was a pretty hellish year in of itself. That purging is driven a lot by the sheer velocity of Jeremy's vocals. He could be screaming out train announcements and his delivery alone would have been the palm of his hands. That belting out of the title track sounds like it's been picked up from mic outside of the studio. It makes how isolated and frustrated he feels hit all the harder. Don't get me wrong, it is great to have songs that boost your spirits during 2020, and we'll get into some of them in just a few moments, but when it came to songs that really helped me the most when I was the most hopeless and the lowest, it was something like Lament that really does meet you on your level and really does resonate with you when you are feeling just so frustrated and isolated. Hey, so before we get into this next entry, I'm going to keep it brief. When I record this video on the 4th of January, I didn't have COVID and I didn't know that Ariel Pink was a big fascist defender. So I just wanted to defend myself by saying that if Ariel Pink wasn't on this next track, it would lose none of its quality. It would remain just as good as it is. Fuck Ariel Pink. And yeah, let's get into it.
Glimmering shadows now, I walk with the stars, yeah.
I feel like Young Lean's reputation as a meme rapper has been long forgotten, has been totally dismissed, but if anyone was still to be making these claims, then this song right here doesn't just put these detractors' claims to rest, but it chucks them all the way to the great beyond. It laughs in the face of those very claims. There's always been a psychedelic strand to Lean's DNA, as shown by those he's influenced building upon these foundations, but when it comes to great cloud rap that makes me feel like I'm ascending to a higher place of existence, Stars does something for me no song in this genre has managed since Star Shopping.
I don't
While I'm definitely a bit of a Strokes apologist and think Angles was a worthy comeback album, even I didn't have the highest hopes for the Strokes' return to music after a 7-year hiatus, but if 2020 taught me anything, it was not to trust my expectations whatsoever, because The Adults Are Talking is every bit as good as any song on Is This It or Room on Fire. This song just fills me with glee. Julian has never sounded as good as he does here, and that falsetto just makes me feel giddy. And not only that, but the rest of the band are just chiming in with what can only be described as post-punk perfection. Take into account some great political commentary, and not only have you got one of the best openers of 2020, but one of the best songs of the year, period. If there's any song in my top 10 that you're not familiar with, then chances are it's this, and if that is the case, then why not? Do you think you're too good for an energetic wee bop that can only be described as The Cure trying their hand at hyperpop? No, you're not too good, so when this video's done, you chuck this on and you just scream your wee heart out.
I will always love you, I'll love you forever, even when we're not together. I will always love you, I'll love you forever, said I love you forever.
I mentioned this before my Pop 2 ranked video, but it's always baffling that some view Charli XCX as someone you come solely for the bops and that you can just ignore what she has to say, and I think Forever only went to strengthen how ridiculous that mindset is. I was lucky enough that I spent lockdown with my partner, but the appeal in what this track is trying to do was not lost on me. If anything, Forever got to me even more because the sheer thought of going through this experience was just heart-wrenching, and the lovely sentiment of being so far apart and still holding on to all these just lovely feelings regardless of what's going to happen. Oh, yeah, that just made my heart flutter a fair bit, and it also made me feel quite heartbroken at points, even though it's a very versatile wee song. It's helped by the fact that A.G. Cook and BJ Burton provide a backdrop that is equal parts enchanting as it is harsh, pretty well matched to the love getting Charlie and her partner through all the calamity they're living through.
I don't wanna talk about anything, I don't wanna talk about anything, I wanna kiss you as again, wanna witness you as looking.
I can say pretty confidently that no one has written about love as well as Adrian Linker has with the song Anything. It's a track that details the highs and lows of romance in such a delicate way to suggest that it is as fragile, unique and special as it claims to be. I'll never not be gobsmacked by how Adrian is capable of making the most beautiful soundscapes I've ever heard with just a guitar and maybe an accompanying instrument or two here or there. How she envisions and captures fleeting grandiose feelings, distilling them all into poetry that you'd be content to have tattooed all over you. It borders on magic, and I'm more than happy to believe it's such. So we're finally in the top 5, but before we get into it I want to mention two quick things. First, there's a Spotify playlist for all the songs I've mentioned so far, including honorable mentions and the songs that we're about to mention, so go give that a follow if you can. That's down in the description down below, along with a poll which you can vote in that will determine what artists I'll be covering in the ranked series in 2021. At least 1 or 2 entries. I'm planning on doing 3 this year, so go exercise your right, let me know what you want to see. And with that out of the way, let's move on into the top 5, starting with...
Keep my business off the ground, switch my style like I switch hands. Going to war in foreign land, fuck out the way bitch, back it up, shit better get played in the palace.
Veteran was an impressive release when it dropped back in 2018, but it left a pretty big question in that, how did JPEG Mafia think or plan on maintaining this impressive, eclectic, experimental image? How on earth do you top that? He responded with All My Heroes Are Cornballs in 2019, which showed just how much he was still capable of, and if anyone at this point still thought the well was going dry, then Bald solely existed to make them look silly. It feels like watching someone play an RPG's post-game after they've fully upgraded their arsenal and stats and done every quest that they possibly can. They're unstoppable, jumping from beat to beat, hitting out with impressive bar after bar like they're going out of fashion. I've been a big fan of his work so far, but I truly believe that LP3 is going to be Peggy's masterpiece, so do not let me down, do not make me look like a fool, though no one knew you probably would really enjoy that. For the 3rd year in a row, Christine and the Queens has found herself in the top 10 in one of these videos. That's an impressive track record right there, and this song right here might actually be the best one that she's put out so far. There's an obvious point to be made that in such a miserable year, of course a song with sad in the title was going to strike a chord, but the appeal of this song is so much more than that. Just on the performance level alone, this song is just stunning. Chris painting a vibrant image you'd only get with an 8K telly via her voice alone. The imagery on here is just as colourful and intricate, even if you aren't fluent in French. Just the pronunciation of these words alone acts as a testament to their importance. I really look forward to seeing what beauty Chris delivers in 2021, if she does. At least she's definitely deserved a break after how great she's been thus far, but God knows that she also deserves to get that top spot, so don't wait too long.
We're not alone. I'll find a new place to be from. A haunted house with a picket fence to float around and ghost my friends.
There's saving your best for last, and then there's closing your record out on your best song to date like Phoebe Bridgers did with I Know the End. It's the kind of track that I'd love to witness my first reaction to, because while it starts off pretty nicely, it's when that guitar line kicks in at the 2:15 mark. I along with the strings, where you get the sense that the restraints are clicking in and your courage is starting to ascend a terrifying summit. Phoebe Bridgers' music is always something I come to for the hyper detailed and melancholic nature of her lyrics, but with Punisher it saw that production get stepped up a notch, and when it comes to this very song, I Know the End, I think it's the most enigmatic of her sound coming full circle. An artist capable of painting an apocalypse of her words as well as her screams. She probably didn't anticipate it becoming an anthem the way it does, but if ever there was a cathartic track to soundtrack the never-ending stream of depressing headlines, it was I Know the End. Speaking of ends, we've almost reached ours, but before I get into who's filling the last 2 spots on this list, I'll give you a few seconds to guess, so I'll just eat this veggie Percy Pig and give you a little bit of time. You good? Right, here we go. I can still remember my first listen to Good News pretty vividly because of the setting I chose to consume it. I was on a wee walk around my neighbourhood. It was typical January Scottish weather where the sun is beaming down on you as if it's the summer, but it's also freezing, and every step you take you are risking your stability in that you're going to fall flat on your arse on some ice that you can't see. It was a pretty bittersweet environment which made that first listen just so perfect, and as luck would have it, every listen to this song since, whether I'm in bed or if I've been on the train or if I've been at the Jimmy Neutron sponsored Hydrates, it's been perfect. I'm really struggling to think what I can possibly add to the conversation around this song. Max singing is lackadaisical but in an engaging manner which really contributes to the pensive, pondering mood of the track, and the dreamy production from Jon Brion feels compartmentalised in the way that he prioritises detail over scope. By the time this video goes up, it'll have been a year since Good News was released, and I suppose that kind of explains why it's in the position it is right now, because of that staying power. It may be minimal, but for almost 6 minutes I'm absolutely mesmerised, to the point I feel like I'm floating on a wee pink flutter reflecting on my life as well. I'll admit, for the longest time I couldn't imagine any other song getting the title of Best Song of 2020 other than Good News. It was something that wasn't easy. This has definitely been the most difficult year when choosing my #1 song of the year, but when it came down to it and I thought long and hard about it, no other song could be labelled as the best song of 2020 other than Colour Me Impressed. The artist behind the shifting, changing, nightmarish soundscapes of Safe in the Hands of Love has come out with a song that can only be labelled as the triumphant anthem of 2020. Granted, you could interpret being the anthem of 2020 as an insult, but when it came to the perseverance and the endurance necessary to wade through last year, then Gospel for a New Century was a shot of adrenaline in the same way a block of C4 is an effective paperweight. A weaker artist would blow their load right out the gate, but as you can expect from the mind behind so many of 2020's most sultry jams, Eve Toomer isn't afraid of teasing and biding their time, knowing just when to whack the button that unleashes this beast of a chorus, letting it prowl around before trying to ram it back into the cage. According to Last.fm, I've listened to this song around about 40 times, but somehow it's yet to lose even a speck of the excitement and appeal it wowed me with when I first heard it. It may not be my most listened to song of 2020, but that just comes down to the fact that if I was to listen to it that excessively, I'd be worried that my heart would give out. So yeah, best song of 2020, no doubt about it. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, then I would definitely appreciate you giving it a like. Maybe subscribe if you're enjoying the content that you've seen so far. Thank you so much to the people that support me over on Patreon. For £1 you get early access to my content, and for £3 you get your name in the credits just like right now. I'm speechless. I'm just so happy that people decide to do this. Next up will be the best albums of 2020. That will be dropping in a week or so's time, so keep your eyes peeled for that. But as always, take care, stay safe, and stay hydrated.